All right, guys, here's our lecture on what is known as indefinite pronouns. And what are those? Those are words like someone, anyone, everyone, and no one. But also, we can expand them to other question words like the words someone, anyone, no one, and everyone. They pertain to the question word who, which in Russian is kto. But we will see that the same pattern will also apply to the other question words like что, which means what, где, which means where, and когда, which means when. But first, let's look in detail. Uh, eh, okay, wait a minute. All right. First, let's look in detail with the indefinite pronouns we can make with the word что, which means what. On one end of the spectrum, we have ничего, ничего, which means nothing. Then we have что-то, что-то, which means something. We also have что-нибудь, что-нибудь, which can mean something, can be translated as something or anything, depending on context. And if we want to distinguish, one way to decide with good probability which one we should use is ask yourself, is the speaker, do they have something in mind? Or are they referring something to something that someone else has in mind? If it is something that they have in mind, the appropriate one will be что-то. But if it is something someone else has in mind, which makes it more vague or hypothetical, it will be что-нибудь. Что-нибудь. This is something that will take some practice to get comfortable with. The good news is, if you mix these two up, it's not going to make a big difference. You will still be understood. And then we have a more definitive case of anything, which is что угодно. Что угодно. And this is translated as anything at all. And finally, on the very end of that spectrum, we have все. Все, which means all or everything. And like I said, there is a bit of there's going to be some confusion between these two, but the good news is if you mix them up, yes, you will sound less natural, but you will be understood, and that's most important. And also, I am including не here in the square brackets after ничего. Now, why am I doing that? Because in Russian, double negative is not only correct, it is also the only way to express some things. In English, when we say, it would be incorrect to say, I don't have nothing. And that's a double negative. We don't do that. We say, I have nothing. But in Russian, if we said, у меня есть ничего, or я имею ничего, имею means is conjugated for the verb have. That would be confusing. That would be grammatically incorrect and confusing. We would have to say у меня нет ничего, or я ничего не имею. So I'm adding extra negatives there, and that's why I'm putting it here, because не will often follow the word ничего. Now, just like we had that pattern going with the word что, which means what, it also applies to the other question words in the same pattern. So starting with let's go over кто, which means what. We have никто, which means no one. We have кто-то, which means someone. We have кто-нибудь, which means someone or anyone. The same type of logic applies as I described with что-то and что-нибудь. We have кто угодно, which is anyone at all, and we have все. Um, what else do I want to say about this? So now the gender and plurality. The plurality applied when we say все, that word is plural. So for verb agreements, it's treated as plural. Everything else here is treated as singular male. So now why does it matter? When we speak in the past tense, we have to agree the verb to the gender. And that's gonna matter then. So by default, all of these are singular male, but все is plural. Likewise, we have the same pattern going with the word где, which means where. Starting on the very end of the spectrum, нигде, which means nowhere. Нигде. Где-то, somewhere. Где-нибудь, somewhere or anywhere, depending. The same logic applies as before. Где угодно, anywhere at all, and везде, everywhere. And we can do the same with the word когда, which means when. Starting on the very end of the spectrum, никогда, which means never. Когда-то, which means sometime. Когда-нибудь, sometime or anytime, same logic applies. Когда угодно, anytime at all. And всегда, which means always. Now, some nuances I also want to say. So, normally when we speak about something that happened in the past, we will be saying когда-то. But if we are talking about something in sometime in the future, did I say something? I meant sometime. Sometime in the past will be когда-то, but sometime in the future generally will be когда-нибудь. Maybe because the past is more certain, because it's already happened, and the future is less certain. Maybe that's why. But that's my theory. Now, what else did I want to say? Um, so when we mean nothing, when something that we say can be rephrased with nothing, with the word nothing, we should be using ничего. So for example, I don't have anything. You may be tempted to translate this as у меня нет что-нибудь or чего-нибудь. But if this can be translated as, but this can also be translated as I have nothing. And that's the one we should go with. So the correct translation for that would be у меня ничего нет. Notice that we are not just saying у меня ничего, which means I have nothing, but we have to provide the double negative. So we're ending with у меня ничего нет. Let's see. This principle applies to other words as well, meaning the other question words as well. The same applies to the other extreme of everything. Okay, we'll see what this means in practice. All right, here we go. I don't have anything. У меня ничего нет. The word for cold is холодная. Uh, Now, I forgot to say that for the um, for the words like something, the gender of that word is not male. But so for someone, the gender is male, but for something, the gender will by default will be the middle gender. So the word for cold is холодный, but we have to agree to the middle gender, and it becomes, it is written here, холодная, холодная. Do you want to drink? And this is formal. Yes, something cold, please. Вы хотите пить? Да. Что-нибудь холодное, пожалуйста. Вы хотите пить? Да. Что-нибудь холодное, пожалуйста. Now, if you said что-то холодное, пожалуйста, that would sound less natural, but you would be understood. Now, why did we go with что-нибудь instead of что-то? Um, Probably because here the speaker is talking about something that someone else has, and so they're less certain about it. You can, yeah, so it's more vague, and therefore we're going with что-нибудь. But again, try your best in these practices, but if you get them wrong, not the end of the world, you'll still be understood. The verb for to have taken is взять. Взять. Now, when we are speaking to here we're speaking to a male and informally. Have you taken everything? Ты все взял? Ты все взял? If you ask ты взял все, that's also just fine. And I know that's the more natural way to translate it because that directly follows the word order. Now, есть, as you know, is the verb for to eat, to be eating, but it is also used in place of there is, or sometimes is. So knowing that, how would you translate here? There is everything that you want. And this is informal. Тут есть все, что ты хочешь. Тут есть все, что ты хочешь. From you would be, informally, would be от тебя. От тебя. Although when we say it fast, it's going to be от тебя. And to rephrase it in the most natural word order, now this is the case where if we can say something, if we can say the same thing using nothing, that's the one that we should go with. So can we rephrase it with the word nothing? Yes, we can. It would be, I need nothing from you. And for the most natural word order, let's phrase it as, I nothing need from you. Remember, there will be a double negative. Мне ничего не нужно от тебя. Мне ничего не нужно от тебя. Notice the double negative. Ничего is a negative, and we are also negating the need. So it's almost like we're saying, uh, I don't need nothing from you. I don't like something here. And for the most natural word order, let's do I hear something don't like. Мне тут что-то не нравится. Мне тут что-то не нравится. Now, why did we go with что-то here instead of что-нибудь? It's because it is from a speaker's point of view, and the speaker knows exactly what it is that's hinting them to not like something. So there's more certainty here. So we're going with что-то. He can tell you anything. Он может сказать тебе что угодно. Он может сказать тебе что угодно. And here we could tell that anything meant anything at all. And that's why we went with что угодно. No one knows. Remember the double negative. Никто не знает. Никто не знает. No one knows what to do. Никто не знает, что делать. Никто не знает, что делать. No one knew what to do. Никто не знал, что делать. Никто не знал, что делать. Everyone wants to be speaking with you. Now remember, everyone is plural. Все хотят говорить с тобой. I forgot to say this was informal. Все хотят говорить с тобой. Someone doesn't understand me? Кто-то не понимает меня? Кто-то не понимает меня? We also could have gone with кто-нибудь here. Кто-нибудь не понимает меня, in this case, is just as appropriate. So, as you can see, um, while it may be hard um, to decide between кто-то and кто-нибудь in some situations, In some situations, it really doesn't even matter. And in all situations, you will be understood. So, don't stress about it too much. Just keep practicing, and as you get better language, better sense of the language, you will start to pick up the differences. It can be anyone. Это может быть кто угодно. Это может быть кто угодно. It can be anywhere. Это может быть где угодно. Это может быть где угодно. It can be anytime. Это может быть когда угодно. Это может быть когда угодно. It can be anything. Это может быть где... excuse me. Это может быть что угодно. Это может быть что угодно. The word for God in Russian is Bog. Bog. But often you will not hear the g. You'll just hear Bog. You'll hear almost like it's a h sound. Bog. God is everywhere. Бог везде. Бог везде. And on this controversial and philosophical note, we are going to end this lesson. I think it's the last slide. Yes.